Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. I am the founder and the editor-in-chief of Poets and Quants. Uh, Poets and Quants for Undergrads, which is our site for anyone who's interested in an undergraduate business education, is probably, I'd say without question, the most robust information source for undergraduate business programs in the world, bar none. No one even comes close. And I want to talk a little bit about why the business major has become so popular, why it is in fact the number one major in America, what led to that development. Undergraduate business education has been a true growth area for many business schools, and the quality of business education at the undergraduate level has risen substantially in the last quarter of a century, actually. In many cases, even rivaling some of the better MBA programs. The most obvious reasons for the success of the degree is it gets you a job. And we know that with tuition being as high as it is, and the decision to go to a four-year school occupying a lot of mind space and a lot of work to get into a good school, making sure that that education immediately starts to pay off with a meaningful job at a salary that's somewhat substantial is an important part of the ingredient. And I think a lot of parents have kind of steered their kids into a business education, largely for that. It's hard to know, obviously, if you are a high school junior or senior, that you want to major in business. I remember back to when I was in high school, I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I loved writing and I loved music. I ended up being the rock critic for my college newspaper, and I ultimately became a journalist. But it's really hard for people to know. And I think that most people who end up knowing that they want to major in business and therefore apply to a business school are often than not inspired by their parents who are in business and who spent a lot of time around the dinner table talking about their experiences in business. And that kind of got them interested. But one of the most important things to know, particularly if you're a young person in high school about business, is that there's no just one thing. You know, a business education is a really well-rounded education. You will still have the opportunity to take many liberal arts schools, and that's a real key thing to your well-rounded education. You don't have to do specialize in accounting or finance. There are lots of other fields, including leadership and entrepreneurship and marketing and operations and data analytics. So there are a lot of different fields that you can dive deep in when you're a business major. And the other part that I love the most about business education, frankly, is you're going to learn a lot more beyond the business basics. You're going to get things that you would never get in any other major. Let me give you a few examples. You're going to hone your leadership skills. You're going to learn how to work effectively in teams. You're going to gain an appreciation for what it means to network and understanding the value of networking, not only during your time in school or your time immediately after, but for the rest of your life. You're going to learn how to do a great presentation, a persuasive presentation in front of others. You're going to learn how to negotiate smartly with others. These are the so-called soft skills that you gain in a business program that you will never get if you're a major in computer science, if you're a major in geography, philosophy, English, political science, you just name your topic. And that's why I'm so gung-ho about business education at the undergraduate level. You're still going to get that broad and wide breadth of knowledge in other subjects, but you're going to focus in a way that's really going to make you not only marketable, but more effective in whatever you do. And that can mean any job. It doesn't even have to be in business. It can be in a nonprofit field. It can be for an NGO. It could be a job in the government. Learning the fundamentals and those soft skills in a great undergraduate business program is ideal preparation for your life. And that's why we devote so much time to it and so much information about it. Now, some of the key decisions that you need to make very early on is whether or not you apply to a 2-year program or a 4-year program. Now, a 2-year program means you apply to the general university, you get in, and then as a sophomore, you apply again to the business school. I personally do not like those approaches, and I'll tell you why. The advantage is you actually probably get more liberal arts in the beginning and get your footing in the school before you have to take any business courses. The negative, however, is if you really know you want to major in business and that's your goal, you effectively have to apply twice instead of just once. And let's face it, freshman year is usually a difficult transition for a lot of people. You may not do that well. And one of the core elements to decide in a 2-year undergraduate business program whether or not you get into the business school as a junior is your GPA. So if I had a son or a daughter who is interested in business education, I would definitely steer them to a 4-year program. In the beginning of a 4-year program, incidentally, even as a freshman, you typically are going to take a very wide survey course, nothing really incredibly difficult as a business major, just to get your feet wet and to get a better understanding of what business is and how it's conducted and who are some of the key players in it, along with some of the major trends that's impacting the world of business, whether it be technology, globalization, or more specifically, data analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, how that's going to change our lives over the next 10 years to 25 years. I will tell you that the best schools in the undergraduate business space are very competitive to get into. In some cases, the acceptance rates to get into these schools is even harder than Harvard Business School for MBAs. I'll give you a few examples. Berkeley Haas School, and we're going to have Berkeley on our panel coming up, 5% acceptance rate. So 95% of the people who apply to the school don't get in. Cornell, 6.4%, Wharton, 6.7%, NYU Stern, 7.6%, UNC at Chapel Hill, 10.6%. So it's very competitive to get into some of the better schools. But that's also because the rewards are very high as well. When people graduate from, a fairly well-known undergraduate business education, they are going to get a job. They'll probably have several offers. They're going to have internships while they are students that will help line them up for a full-time job offer. The starting compensation, this includes signing bonus and starting pay, at the highest levels is approaching $92,000 a year at Wharton. At a whole host of schools, it's over 80 grand a year. We're talking Carnegie Mellon, WashU, NYU, UVA, Cornell, Georgetown, Michigan, and Berkeley. And in most cases, almost all cases, in fact, the starting pay for an undergraduate business major is higher by far than the average starting pay for undergraduates overall. And better than that are the placement rates, which are very high. And that's because more often than not, undergraduate business schools have their own career management offices. They understand that placing a person, giving them a shot at a good internship that leads to a full-time job offer is almost as important as the academics. And the success of a school is very dependent on the career outcomes of its graduates. So they get a lot more attention, a lot more hand-holding, a lot more workshop devoted to resume prep, preparing a great LinkedIn profile, as I mentioned before, networking, using your alumni base to make connections that open up opportunities for you. That's all part of a really good, solid business school experience, which I think makes it incredibly valuable for people. The last thing you want to do in today's world is spend a lot of money on college tuition and end up with someone working at Starbucks. Nothing wrong with Starbucks, but not the best way to start off your career after graduating with your undergraduate degree. The other thing about business is you'll find faculty who are extremely dedicated and passionate about their fields. I've met some of the most incredible, motivational, inspiring people ever on the faculties of business schools, whether at the undergraduate level or the graduate level. And these people are eager to mentor, very accessible to students, devoted to their success, not only in the classroom, but often outside the classroom, not only with extracurriculars, but even helping with job search and placement. All in all, I'm sold on business education, and for this English and political science major, frankly, I wish that I had knew about the value of a business education when I went to college. Now, we have a really incredible lineup of things. Before I go through what we're going to do today, I just want to mention that we have a terrific bonus feature. Yesterday, I had a great conversation with two people who are giants in the field of college admissions. These two people are about to come out with a brand new book that's really valuable for parents. It's called The College Conversation. Be published by Viking Penguin on September 22nd, so next week. And what it does is it brings parents through the process, often the anxiety-ridden process of helping to guide their junior and senior high school students through and into college. There are exercises in the book, and it was written by Eric Furta, who for the past 12 years has been the director of admissions at UPenn, and before that was director of admissions at Columbia University, and also co-authored by a person who I have long admired. He was the education correspondent for the New York Times for about 25 years, Jacques Steinberg. And Jacques wrote really the Bible on selective college admissions called The Gatekeepers many years ago. This book is in its 25th printing. It's dog-eared and highlighted by me because I just love this book. Really gives you a great insight into the selection process at a highly selective institution. And I have a really great conversation with them. So we will follow up with everyone who registered for the event with our fireside chat with both Eric and Jacques. We also have some interviews that I did with alums of undergraduate business programs that I think you'll really find enlightening. My conversations with a couple of kids from, they're not kids anymore, from Rutgers Business School was spectacular. I found them to be passionate, engaging, really, really thoughtful young professionals who I think really reflect well on the school. So we're going to start with a great admissions panel. And in the panel, we have a wide variety of schools, which I love. And in each of these schools is a great undergraduate business program. We have Indiana Kelley, which is in Bloomington. It's one of the most beautiful college towns you'll ever find. We have Illinois Gies College of Business, which is a fantastic school in the Midwest, of course. Michigan Ross, everyone knows, it's often considered, it is considered and is a public Ivy. Berkeley Haas out here in California, where I am, and the smoke is finally beginning to clear a little bit and we can actually go out and breathe. And then we have Lipscomb, which you may or may not have heard of, but it's in Nashville. It's for young Christians, and it's another really great school. We're going to have a panel. We're going to talk about a lot of the things that I'm sure anyone who's interested in undergraduate business education wants to know. And then our panel will actually go into chat rooms, so you can follow them there and ask them any kind of question you'd like. And after that, we have a series of like workshops and seminars. The first one will be Secrets to Great College Essays. And the title of this I love. It's What We Learned from Reviewing 50,000 Essays. Oh my God. The next workshop is called Crafting a Compelling Application. Then we have How to Convey Fit in Your College Essay. And then we have another workshop on college admission strategy when the world is upside down. And then we have a special thing that I did, a fireside chat with the dean of the undergraduate program at Wharton, Diana Robertson, who's just a delightful individual. I knew her husband very well because for many years he was the dean of the Wharton School overall. And then my pre-recorded interviews with graduates of a couple of different schools to give you a sense of how that experience impacted their lives. So let me introduce our panel. From Indiana Kelley, we have Megan Ray. I see you right there. Hi, Megan. She is Director of Undergraduate Admissions. Thank you for joining us. We have from the University of Illinois, the Gies College of Business, Kevin Jackson, who's Associate Dean of Undergraduate Affairs. Welcome, Kevin. We have the Director of Undergraduate Programs at Michigan Ross, Paul Kirsch. Welcome. From Berkeley Haas, in my backyard, we have Erica Walker, who's Assistant Dean of the Undergraduate Programs. And then from Lipscomb, we have Rick Holloway, Director of Graduate Programs. Welcome, Rick. So I want to, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions that all of you can answer. And then because we have so many of you and I have so many questions for you, I may just do like lightning round questions where I'll hit one of you with a question and then move on to the next. And feel free to be spontaneous and just join in, jump in at any point. If you want to riff on something one of your colleagues made at another school, it'd be fantastic. So I want to go through the basics first. Who gets in and what does the class actually look like? In terms of both numbers, gender breakdown, geographic breakdown, whether or not you attract international students or not. Let's go to Megan and say, what does your latest class profile look like at the Kelley School?
Sure. Thank you, John. And thanks so much for allowing us to be here this evening. We're super excited. So we brought in a class of a little under 2,000 entering first-year students this year, which we're super excited about that those young people chose to join us during such an uncertain period of time. So that class is made up of around 35% women, around 12% what we would consider underrepresented minorities, and also has around 5% international students. We saw the largest dip there, as many schools
Understandably.
did. Right, of course. And 65% non-resident, which is actually flipped from Indiana University. Indiana University is around 60% resident coming in, but the Kelley School is actually opposite of that. We pull a lot of students from outside the state of Indiana.
And let me just say, I've been lucky and privileged to get to know a bunch of your students over the years. In fact, let me just tell everyone, I actually hired 5 of your undergraduate students to come and be consultants for us. We sent them out here in California. We put them up in a big Airbnb. We gave them tours of the city. And then they spent several days interviewing all of my staff members to come up with a plan for us, and they were spectacular. I've also been to your Admit weekend, which is quite an extravaganza. It's kind of like the Super Bowl of admissions, not to be missed by anyone. And in fact, I'm sure all these schools have great Admit events, and you definitely should attend them because you get a real feel for whether or not you belong. And if you want to really figure out fit, that's a great way to figure out fit. And Kevin, what does your incoming class look like at Gies? Oh, I think your mute button might be on, Kevin. There we go. Hi there.
Think I'd know how. You think I'd be an expert with Zoom with all
Yeah,
of
really?
the
Come on.
Zoom that we've been doing these
How you
days. Sorry
doing?
about my bad. I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. So we have about 580 incoming freshmen. Now that doesn't include some transfer students that we might have, but strictly incoming freshmen. We have about 75% of Illinois residents. We had, again, a kind of a small dip in our international population. Generally like to be around 15%. We might have been a little bit under that for this go around. About 40% of the class is female.
Yeah. And I will say this too, people may not know this, but Gies has basically shut down their full-time MBA program and their executive MBA program. And the reason why I mention that is because what that has allowed the school to do is to put all its eggs in two baskets primarily. Yes, they do some specialized master's programs online, but the two big baskets are undergraduate education and their online program, which is a real bargain at $22,000 a year for people who are interested in that. But I've been in your school a few times, and I've seen your undergraduates as well. They're an incredibly impressive group. In fact, I went one time, and there was a whole resume fair, and all the kids were lined up, and they were all eager to go and going to different booths where there were representatives from different companies that literally were reviewing the resumes of the students and giving them tips on how to make them better, which I thought was fantastic, because that even went above and beyond the Career Management Center, because you actually brought in employers who ultimately would be looking at the resumes, which I found really impressive.
And those were all the freshmen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when they were lined up, they looked like really engaged and really into it. This was not like, oh God, we got to go through this again.
You always love to see what they look like in suits and ties, right?
Yeah. That's really true. And Paul, what does your incoming class look like at Ross?
We have just admitted 534 students, evenly split between Michigan and non-Michigan residents. 5% international, which is actually just a notch down from where we usually are. And about 40%, just over 40% are women in the incoming class, and that goes up a little bit higher with our transfer class in sophomore year.
Yeah, that's a good representation for women, because obviously business schools tend to be more male than not, but 40+%, that's a really good number. And Rick, how about your school? Tell me a little bit about your incoming cohort.
Yeah, so we're obviously the smallest school on this panel for sure. We had about 175 new students coming into College of Business this year, which was up from last year. About 45% of those are female. And then we have a 21% minority. And also we did see a decline, of course, in international students as well. Yeah. And we have about 3% this year.
Yeah, and for anyone wondering why the international students are down, what happened is it was very hard to get student visas during the height of the pandemic. The embassies were all closed. Then when they finally opened up, they opened up here and there and not everywhere. And there were long backlogs of applications for student visas. Many students couldn't get a visa. Some students chose to take a deferment because they wanted a full college experience. In many cases, the college curriculum in every university is hybrid or even online. And there were also travel restrictions in place, which has really cut down on the international mobility of a lot of people to attend school in the U.S. So Erica, what's it look at like at Berkeley Haas this year?
Hi, John, and
Hi.
thanks for having me on the panel, and hi to
Thank
all the
you.
colleagues on the line as well. It's good to see some familiar faces. For us, similar in terms of patterns around international students, we typically see between 12 and 15% international students in our entering class, and I think we fell somewhere around 12.9% this year. Most of our students do come from California in the West Coast area, so I would say less than 10% are out of state that in the undergraduate program. We admitted about 450 students this year.
Great. Now, Erica, tell me what sets your program apart from others.
Well, I mean, I think that, first of all, Berkeley kind of has its culture on its own, and then Berkeley Haas also has a culture on top of that. And so I think one of the things we've always talked about in terms of differentiating our program from others is one, we do have a strong sense of culture, and it's around our defining leadership principles. And so we always talk about confidence without attitude, question the status quo, beyond yourself, and students always. Those are pillars that we do ingrain within our students from the moment that they're admitted into the program. And really it goes even before that. When we're outreaching and we're talking about admissions, we're embedding a lot of that framework into our discussion so that they understand exactly what we're talking about when we say our defining leadership principles. And our mission is to be able to develop leaders who will actually embody and live out the defining leadership principles loudly. So that's kind of one of the things that I think says a little bit about who we are and what we're looking
And
at.
it really defines your culture, and it informs your admission decisions too.
It does. We're asking questions about it. We're asking questions about what students' experiences have been around it. And, we're really looking to see if students have kind of an openness to and an ability to be coached around these principles. So, that's something. And the other thing that I would say about us that might be a little bit different is that we also very much emphasize a liberal arts foundation, and we want students to take courses not only within the business school, but also outside of the business school. So we require that they take classes outside so that there can truly be an interdisciplinary learning. I mean, we think that undergraduate business education already is very interdisciplinary, but to be able to start mapping it to classes outside of the department tends to have more of a salient experience for students as they're matriculating through.
The other thing I should point out that in most cases, geography is destiny. So, if you're going to go to Berkeley, you're probably going to end up in California. And if you're out of state, you're probably going to end up in California because no one wants to leave California. Despite the fires, the earthquakes, the outrageous cost of living here. Isn't it true?
Say so, but I could be just biased. But that happened to me. I'm a transplant from Tennessee and California ever since. So I won't leave California if I can help it.
See, Rick's happy that you're from Tennessee.
Right.
That's right, Rick.
Sitting there in Nashville, which is one of
She
the
left,
coolest towns in America. Let me tell you. Despite those pictures of people without masks partying on the main drag there,
Yeah.
Okay. I've been in those bars. I've listened to that music. It's a fantastic dynamic place to spend time. What distinguishes your program, Rick?
Yeah, so I think very similar. We have our values, our core values that we try to teach throughout all of our courses. And those are to be bold, to be credible, because we need people out who are honest and would have high integrity, to be purposeful in what they do, to be creative in what they do, to think outside the box, to challenge the status quo, and then also to have a servant heart, be servant leaders. And so we push those, we teach those virtues in all of our courses, whether undergrad or graduate level. And so we try to make sure that we graduate leaders who embody those virtues all the way through. We're very intentional about it. We want to make sure they understand that as a Lipscomb graduate, this is kind of what we want you to go out and be leaders who make a difference, who go out and better the community around them. And so we really want to make sure we're intentional about that. But also, we also have this whole side of our college that is intentional about business's mission. So BAM. We have a conference every year. We're about to have another one coming up in October, this year virtual, of course. But last year, we were hoping to have about 150 people show up. We ended up having to cap it around 500 for business as mission. And we had people from all over the world come to learn about how to use their business to create greater good for those communities in which they're working in, and also to teach that making a profit is not bad. Right? I work at a Christian school, and there are those out there that believe profit is evil, or because it's money. And so money is not evil, but because of profit, you can do some pretty amazing things. And so we want to teach students to have an entrepreneurial spirit, to go out and make things happen.
Now, you raise a really good point, because I think there are a lot of high school students who believe, that they want to do something with their life that's above and beyond themselves today, that they want to make some kind of contribution that makes society better, that builds community, that brings the world closer together and makes the world a better place to live. And for people like that, you may think about business as opposed to those beliefs. I can tell you that those beliefs are incredibly lined up with what you're going to learn and do in a business program. And in fact, you're going to be equipped with business fundamentals and skills to make you more able to make a contribution that's positive to society and to life. Paul, I know the distinguishing feature of the Michigan Ross School and program, and that is experiential learning. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. Experiential learning is core to how we teach business. Every student in the program has the opportunity for action-based learning throughout the program. And at Ross, we also believe that business is going to be a positive impact on the world. We want students to be trained to make that positive impact. We want students to focus on the career, not on the job. We want students to focus on learning, not on the grades. And we want students to acknowledge and feel comfortable in the positive aspects of competition, but also more so the value of great collaboration. And that's something that all of our students are well versed in by the time they're through the program.
Now, there are probably people here who don't know or are unfamiliar with the words experiential learning.
Yes.
Or action-based learning. Can you explain more specifically what that means to them?
Yeah. And those are, at Ross, we use those terms interchangeably. So thank you for saying them both. In Ross, we want our students to actually have hands-on experience and understand the impact of decision-making and exploration in business. So every student will have the opportunity to consult with a real business before they graduate, where our partners give us problems for students to solve in teams, whether it be in management and organizations or an applied consulting course. Many of our students will have the opportunity to invest in real businesses through any of our 7 funds that actually invest, pieces of the university endowment in startup and privately held companies. Our students will also have the opportunity in our living business and leadership experiment of running a business in their junior and senior year with a team of MBAs and BBAs. And these are business lines that our partners have kind of loaned to the Ross program to actually to launch new product lines, expand markets. It's just an amazingly practical and real experience that our students get to experience before they graduate.
And you're partnering with really, in many cases, very well-known organizations that volunteer their own management expertise, and usually results in some sort of presentation that's judged by the executives, right?
Absolutely. And for example, when Ford's one of our partners right down the street, the executive sponsor who has, gifted us this project or this business line, he and his team will actually sit with our students multiple points throughout the process. They're never too far away. Students have to justify their decisions and actually hand back to our firms, a product line or line of business that's better help than it was when we got it. Student decisions, by the way, are on all aspects of business, everything from how to market a product, how to design it, how to manufacture it, where to manufacture it, what type of people are going to be involved in the product line. So it's just an amazingly complete subset of business that happens within Ross.
Now, Paul, I know in the MBA program, you literally interrupt the academic calendar so that people are working full-time on their projects. Is that true in the undergraduate program as well or not?
In the MBA program, the last quarter of their first year of 2 years is set aside just for action-based learning. In the undergraduate program, they are actually action-based learning moments are part of the semester in various courses. So students, instead of dedicating themselves to one project, might have a course that's imbibed with or embedded with action-based learning opportunities that last full 14 weeks of the course. And that might be fall or winter, depending on when that opportunity comes up.
I see, great. Now, Kevin, I know experiential learning is a big part of the Gies College formula of educating people as well, right?
Absolutely. And so it's interesting hearing the conversation. You know, you first asked what kind of sets your program apart, and I'm hearing so many things that sound familiar, which is awesome. And experiential learning for us is, you know, there is a kind of a commitment that all of our students, all of our undergraduates have an experiential learning, really a semester as part of a 4 cohort course sequence that our students are required to take. That would be the 3rd course in the sequence, where students are working collaboratively on real world problems with real companies, on real issues that matter to their clients. So that's awesome. You know, the one thing, and it's not, I don't think it's completely unique. In fact, in hearing Rick speak, some of what he said resonated with me as well. If I were to kind of boil down Gies, I would think about community, which has been brought up, right? We just have a real emphasis on community. We want it to be a place where students can kind of cheer each other's triumphs and victories and feel good about other people succeeding. And collaboration, that also has come up, something that's really important. And then when Rick talked about purpose, that's kind of at the center of who we are at Gies. And in the way we kind of think about it, the way we kind of frame it is as you said, John, you know, students often have these passions and things that are important to them. And we want to ensure that students don't check that at the door when they walk into Gies, that it's something that we want them to continue to feel passionate about and pursue, with the idea that business is not really the end, but it's a means to some bigger end, some greater end. And it's often the way in which students can pursue those passions in a sustainable way. And so, but you're right, experiential learning is one very important dimension to what we do at Gies.
Now, Megan, I know one of the things that Kelley does extremely well is preparing people for the world of work. And what I mean by that is the whole sequence of things that you do in what has been called Me Inc. In one iteration, right, in your MBA program.
Right.
You have a version of that in your undergraduate program. I think that's one of the unusual things about your program. Can you give us a little detail on what you do to prepare people for the world of work so that when they do leave the school, they're really effective at what they do?
Absolutely. And the Compass series of courses that you're referring to is a 3-class sequence that runs from the first year to the 3rd year of the program and moves the student from thinking about themselves as an individual, right, and doing some of the same things the other programs talked about, like doing some personality assessments, figuring out who you are in a team, developing your LinkedIn profile, thinking about your social media profile, all of those different pieces. In the second piece, they focus on teamwork, and they put students into those experiences where they're then doing another assessment that focuses on who they are in a team. Because a lot of times, the students who are coming to us in Kelley, they're the students who have been the ones who have hauled it out at the last minute. They're the ones who did the project in high school and made sure that it ran. And it's just nice for them to be in an environment suddenly where they're not the only leader. And so they have to learn sometimes how to be excellent followers and excellent contributors as a part of that process. So the second course really works with that. The third year of that course focuses on professionalism. And that's one of the things that we hear from the recruiters and the employers, is that their professionalism is really great in terms of their skill set. They can walk into any kind of meeting and represent themselves and the firm or the company really, really well. And that's exciting. So we want to give students those kinds of opportunities. We know too, part of that whole process is them figuring out what they're interested in, because a real differentiator for us is that we have 18 different major programs and they basically have 2 years to figure it out. So we're not admitting based on a major. They have options, and we know that they may not even be aware of what cool things are available in business. I mean, I certainly didn't before I came to work at Kelley in 2008, right? There are amazing jobs that students can pursue, and jobs that we don't even know about yet.
Right. In fact, that's what I was trying to get at before. You know, you think of business as business, but really, you know, it can be finance, it can be accounting, it can be marketing, it can be strategy, it can be entrepreneurship, it can be data analytics. I'm sure those are among the 12 majors that you have.
They absolutely are.
What are some of the more obscure ones that I might not have mentioned?
I think one of the things that I really appreciate is that the program over the years has developed a series of co-majors that students can add on to their degree with sometimes even as few as 4 classes. So it's very easy. About 70% of our students will double major in the end. And so digital technology is one of those co-majors that I think is really great. So certainly business analytics is one of those as well. And then sustainable business. We're finding more and more that students want to use that business degree to do good in the world. And along with our Kelley Institute for Social Impact, that helps funnel those students into different opportunities in the Bloomington community and internationally to do that. We also have a major program that allows for that opportunity as well.
And, you know, I had mentioned Me Inc., and that's the equivalent program to Compass in the MBA program.
Correct.
And what Compass really does, which is what I like, and, you know, different schools have their own different versions of this, and I'm sure all of the other panelists have these things as well, is it encourages the kind of introspection that's rare at the undergraduate level.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you think about, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish with my life? And what work do I have to do to get there? And that kind of step back from the academic grind, from all of the clubs and organizations and bands and sports and everything else that is a great part of the fun of a great undergraduate experience, that ability to step back and think about yourself and what you want to contribute in life, that's a rare opportunity. And business schools are really good at helping people through self-assessments, through a lot of conversations with both that are facilitated by coaches and their classmates, senior classmates, to get at that kind of thing, which is really a special extra little ingredient that you get out of a good business program.
We've been really fortunate, John. You know, what I think about too, and this would be true of any one of the panelists here, but it's the informal connections that students can make with faculty and with staff. I mean, when I think about that transition, I think about the first year student who was in my office who sat right down and said, you know, I'm in business because I want to make money and I just want to be famous and make money, and this is really important to me. He came back at the beginning of the sophomore year, sat down. I said, well, how's it going? He said, well, I had these really great internship experiences over the summer. I just want to help people. And I thought, well, that right there is why you're doing a liberal arts business education, my friend. Like, you are figuring out who you actually are and not just sort of repeating what we all think the perception of a business school student would be. Yeah.
And that makes me think about, Erica, the people who you admit and come into the program and the people who graduate. How do they change? How does that experience change their perceptions of the world, their ability to contribute to it, who they are, and what they want to accomplish with their life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of students, as you mentioned earlier, when you were talking about motivation to go to business schools or to major in business, a lot of students are coming to us with preconceived notions of what business means. And a lot of the ideas are fueled by perhaps family experiences, pressure from family members, parents even, or just their own thinking that in order for me to get a job, I must major in something specific that directly correlates to that. And through their experience, I think students find that that's not the case, and that they're able to really delve into a variety of subject matters that expand their notion of what it means to be a leader or even a manager entering into the business world. And so many students may come to us thinking that they want to work only in accounting. Perhaps they hadn't considered business at all. They were planning to go into medical school, but they wanted some of the business foundation, and they took a couple of courses, and it really just expanded their thinking on it. So I find that students really have more introspection and reflection as a student in our business courses. And by the time they graduate, they recognize their sphere of influence, and that they're able to actually influence a lot more things than they thought, that you don't necessarily have to have the authority through title or necessarily through level within an organization, but really you can still influence. And how do you do that in a meaningful way? And so I think that students come out finding themselves a little bit more empowered than when they entered.
Yeah. Obviously, Berkeley is highly selective in your business program. All of the schools here practice what's called holistic admissions. And for those who are unfamiliar with that, let me explain it. Your admission to a good business school is based on more than your standardized test score, more than your transcript of high school grades, more than the number of advanced placement courses you took in high school, more than your placement in the high school class. It's based on your full self and how you present yourself to the school. Now, that said, Erica, what does Berkeley look for?
Yeah, I get this question a lot.
I bet.
What is the formula? Really,
no formula.
There's not a formula at all. It's really coming down to how well are you able to convey what your passions are. That's really what it boils down to. We want to know what drives you. What is your passion? And how have you connected the dots to the experience at Berkeley and where you want that to take you? That's really what it boils down to. And I say it, and it's general because it's different for every student. There are some students who come to us. I mentioned, we've got students who are interested in going to med school. I've had students who are interested in theater arts who found their way, as a business major, and their desire is to start their own dance company.
Wow.
And so all of the work, all of the activities, the extracurricular activities that they were involved in, all had to do with dance. It had no business internship or anything related to finance or any of those things. But they were able to articulate it in such a way that demonstrated a passion and really a lot of thought into what it is that they wanted to do and accomplish. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. We want you to be able to demonstrate that passion around what you as a leader can do and how you think you might be able to get the most out of your college experience.
Yeah. Rick, what's the first thing you look for in an applicant?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we look for really is that I mentioned character earlier, assuming all the other grades and everything check out, right? And so one of the things we look for really is that character piece, that drive, that the wonder, the creativity piece mentioned earlier, really that, I don't know, the desire to want to do something bigger, right? And so we have one student comes to mind, and his parents are missionaries in Rwanda, right? And at age 17, he started a coffee shop there, and it's part of our business as mission program. He gives back to the community, but he wanted to come here to learn how to do that really well and to expand his business and to take it to another place, right? And so here's a kid who's got a heart for the people of Rwanda. He's a U.S. citizen, is just a missionary. His parents are missionaries there, but he's really wanting to take that business somewhere else. It's people like that have that, what's next or what could be, and so we really love working with those students and really enjoy seeing them, come in as freshmen and go on to graduation. And I've been at Lipscomb for almost 20 years now, and my previous role is vice president of enrollment. So I'd see these students when they were, freshmen in high school all the way through graduation. And you talk about change, there's a lot of change that happens during that time. And
Sure.
it just, that's when we all kind of start forming our own belief systems, our own patterns of behavior, become ourselves, and it's really interesting to see how these students view business coming in and view business going out, and whether they major in supply chain management or analytics or marketing or, finance or whatever, just really seeing how they grow through their internships, through their experiential learning we've talked about, through their global trips, just seeing how they view the world in a different way. It's just really amazing. And so we really look for those people that are eager to go and make a difference and to create,
Exactly. That's great. Paul, are there certain things that Ross is looking for in an ideal applicant? What's really important to you when you evaluate a candidate?
One thing I like to keep in mind is that we're looking to seed a class of of leaders, and that means different things to different applicants, right? There's some baseline things. We want all of our students to have challenged themselves academically and have been successful in that. We want them to be engaged either in their community, their clubs, their sports, their church, and actually are part of something that they can see themselves making better and bigger. And it's not so much about what their business goals are as it is understanding what business can do, right? We don't, it's great when students come in with an idea for a business that they want to start now, but it's also very invigorating when we find students that I just know that with business I can go anywhere and I'm really excited for the opportunities, and that they can express themselves in a way that does that. We're very pleased to engage with them. In our admissions process, which my colleague will talk about at 6:30, we have a portfolio, which is the one part of the application where the student gets to tell us what they want us to know about them. The rest of the application, we ask questions that we're going to ask everybody. The portfolio allows students to really tell us what makes them special, what makes them unique, what they bring to this group of 500 other leaders that really is going to improve the class and the learning opportunity for everybody.
And I should point out to everyone too, sometimes you can apply someplace and you can be disappointed if you're turned down. But it's more than just, are you right for this school? A lot of times you're crafting an incoming class. Mm-hmm. And you want the diversity in that class that everyone who comes and gains a seat can gain the benefit from. And so there may be people who get turned down who are every bit as qualified, if not more so, than some who get in, but because you have too many consultants or too many, not consultants, I'm sorry, too many, people from one part of the country, another part of the country, or that impacts a lot of these decisions as well, right?
Yeah. So for the families on the call right now,
yeah.
One thing about business education, so much learning happens within the dynamics of the classroom. If everybody's the same, or if everybody has the same goals, or we have folks that are that are reluctant to lean in, the classroom really suffers. So we try to find students that are vocal, that are passionate, that are open to new ideas, and that can work together. And that makes the learning in business just so dynamic and so real time.
Yeah. Kevin, how do you assess fit with the personality and the demands of your program?
I think I just to the parents out there, I think we all appreciate that that the applicants, the prospective students, are not finished products. So really, there's an expectation that that there might be your student may not have every box checked, and that's okay. What we are looking for is whether or not we're in a position to be able to help check the boxes. In other words, are we, based upon your goals, whether they're professional or academic, can we help you? As you try to share with us through your application what your academic and professional goals are we someone who can help you reach your aspirations? And then the other piece of that is are you also someone who is ready to contribute to us? Because we're not a finished product as a business school. And kind of one of the things I try to tell our freshmen when they come in is that we didn't invite you here so that you can become like us. We invited you here so we can become more like you. We want you to be someone who contributes and helps shape our culture and who we are. And Paul used the word openness. That's an important word because we recognize students aren't finished products. We really are keen to find students and identify those students who are open, who are prepared to have new experiences and have those new experiences impact who they are.
Great. Yeah. I think what that makes me remember really is how many of the business schools are very student-centric. A lot of the extracurriculars are run by the students. A lot of them are determined by the students, including conferences, consulting clubs, finance clubs, things that directly help you design the experience for your career and for your purposes. And that's, to me, a really big plus as well. And now, Megan, rather than me ask you similar questions, we actually have a question from Sandra that's kind of similar in this genre of questions that I've been asking. What is a key factor at Kelley that I should keep in mind that the admissions team looks for the most on the request for direct admission?
Absolutely.
That's from Sandra Diaz.
Yes.
Thanks, Sandra.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much. I think the main thing for students to keep in mind, because there was a lot of nervousness too, right, in the chat about like, my senior year grades may be a little bit different because of this pandemic situation and all of these things. Within the Kelley School, we know that students are going to have different circumstances that have impacted their ability to put their best academic foot forward in a lot of ways, or they simply might not have been able to take one of these tests, right? And I have been telling students since the spring, like, don't risk your life to take a test. Like, just go ahead and apply, find some schools that are a good fit for you. It is not worth all that, right? So one of the things that we look for is in our petition process, students who don't meet our automatic criteria for direct admission, the committee takes a really close look at the transcript and they look at the academic weight of the coursework the students have been taking. Have they been taking challenging and rigorous courses? Have they been taking classes in an increasingly difficult level throughout that process? So we really look closely at that transcript. And then we also ask them about a challenging experience that they have faced or something that they're really proud of. And they give us some written context as well. I think personally in the petition process, the most valuable text box that those students can complete is the one that says additional comments. Like, tell us more about your story. Tell us more about who you are, because we know that you have a lot to offer right out of the gate, right? Like, you wouldn't even be applying if you didn't have something awesome to offer. And I am a director of admissions, not a director of denial. Right? And so we want to admit you, right? We really do. And so please, please tell us your story and share that. So Sandra, I will be looking for your petition to the Kelley School of Business.
All right, I love that. And Isaac has a question here that is, I think, a very relevant and topical question and related to the question you just got, Megan, which is this. How will ACT and SAT scores be weighted since most schools are now test optional? And should scores only be submitted if they are near the higher quarter of the school or at least still in the game? What's your advice? I mean,
right. So for us, a student has to first be admitted to Indiana University before they can even be considered for admission to the Kelley School. So what I would do is refer students to the middle 50% range for the Kelley School. Our students tend to skew towards the higher end of the middle 50%. Our averages, our GPA average was a 3.9 and it's a 31 ACT. So they tend to skew a little bit higher. but we have a test optional path for admission because IU decided last fall that they were going to become a test optional institution. And we were super excited in Kelley because that gives us an opportunity to consider students that might not have allowed themselves to petition before because of that test score component. So we're excited.
Now, Kevin, is Gies test optional this year?
Yes, Gies is test optional, and I think along with Megan, we're similarly excited about kind of some perhaps more flexibility that we have, given that test optional. To Isaac's question, I think I would say, and this is something that's that Isaac would have to kind of wait for himself, is that if you feel like your performance on the test really represents your capabilities, then I would feel comfortable including that and making the test score part of the evaluation process. So for us, students are asked to decide, do I want my test score to be part of the evaluation process, or do I not want it to be part of the evaluation process? And if you feel like it's a great representation, you were able to show what you can do, and it represents that well, then I would say you should feel pretty comfortable including that as an input to your evaluation.
Yeah. Are all the schools test optional here, or is anyone still requiring a standardized test? I guess everybody's test optional, huh?
Yeah, optional.
Not quite. Michigan is test flexible this year.
Okay.
We have not announced plans to go test optional, so I think this is the.
Well, what does test flexible mean then?
We will accept any standardized test score that the student chooses to submit, and we'll evaluate that in the application. We do recognize some students didn't have the opportunity to take the test this year, but there are other indicators of academic success.
Sure, and I think that's in general. I mean, people should bear in mind that if they take advantage of a test optional policy, there's going to be a harder look at their high school transcript. I mean, because you do need to have the confidence that someone who comes in can do the academic work, and traditionally you would gain that through both your GPA and your high school transcript, as well as a standardized test score. If you're going to not have a standardized test score, obviously an admissions official will generally put more weight in the decision on the high school transcript. I mean, that's only kind of obvious, but it's an important thing to know, because in relationship to the question, if your standardized test score isn't all that impressive and you chose not to submit it, hopefully your high school transcript shows that you were a really good student and you were taking some difficult courses and you did well on them. Is business boring? I think a lot of high school juniors and seniors might think, oh God, do I really want to major this? Man, I'm really turned on by media, video, politics even, art, music, business. Erica, can business really be not boring?
I think so. I think it can be a lot of fun and very engaging. And I think that's the great thing about undergraduate business education today. There's so much going on, and there's so many ways to adapt different frameworks and methodology into a business kind of, lens, through a business lens. So you're actually looking at, for example, one of our courses is on social movements. You wouldn't think a business course or a business school would have a course on social movements, but, we actually do. And looking at how does that impact business? How does that impact business thinking? So there's a variety of ways in which you can look at it. It's just most people don't think about it that way. But there's certainly, an aspect of business in almost everything that you look around and see and is happening around us. So. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think there's a whole lot of things that you can do. We also have a course, for example, and I think a lot of schools have similar kinds of curriculum, a course on rapid prototyping. So it's rapid prototyping. And so you're actually able to design and develop and beta test things right there in class. That's pretty exciting. You know, I didn't have that when I was an undergraduate student. That's certainly, if I knew that was on the menu, I may have been more inclined. But, you know, there's just a variety of these things that you're hearing those of us on the panel talk about with respect to experiential learning, where you're actually able to apply in real time the things that you're learning in class. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting things you can possibly do as a student.
Yeah, and that course on rapid prototyping, that's part of the whole genre of design thinking. Now, people out there may not have heard of design thinking, but that's taking principles in design and bringing them to problem solving in a way that makes problem solving easier, quicker, with a really good framework around which to approach a challenge or problem. Rick, what's the coolest undergraduate business course in your catalog?
Oh, my word. That's, wow. I've got some of my faculty are listening right now. So let's see.
Come on, you got to beat Eric at this, man.
So I think, okay, so I think I'm going to go with, honestly, I think I'm going to go with our intro class. Our intro to business class is not a normal intro to business class. So basically, the whole class is broken out into teams, and really the teams end up becoming business partners, right? And so their job during that class is to launch a business. So in that class, you may have, you know, 6 or 7 or 8, 10, however many different businesses being launched within that intro to business course. So it's like, it's like intro on, you know, just full speed, right? I mean, it's going full speed all the way from the idea all the way to launch by the end of that course. And so, and what we do, and I mean, we're talking about, we see each business with a little bit of money. So they've got some launch money to go with, and really they take it, and all the proceeds from that goes to one of our capstone courses for our BAM fellows, our BAM honors students. And they take that money and they create a business in Haiti or Jamaica or some third world country. They create a business for somebody there who's struggling to get their business off the ground, right? And so you've got this full circle, and I think that is probably one of the coolest things that we do. For sure.
That sounds really cool. Hey, lightning round. Paul, your favorite cool course, cool in quotes.
I'm going to pick 4 courses that we teach in an integrated semester in our junior fall: business law, management operations, technology, and communications. All 4 classes are taught in a coordinated syllabus. Our projects across different courses, and the teams our students are put on actually operate in different courses of the same semester. So you can't get away from your colleagues, you can't get away from the heavy lifting, and it ends up with a super challenge where all the teams from across the class have to compete against each other.
Okay, now you used a word that may be unfamiliar to people, but is very familiar to people in the business like us, and it's integration, integrative, yep. Core. Tell people what you mean by that.
In higher ed, we tend to teach courses by discipline, and you know, it's accounting or marketing. But anybody who's been in business knows you don't solve problems from one perspective at a time. And the risk semester is a living, breathing example of bringing multiple perspectives to business issues significantly and consistently. And that's the way that your career is going to go, regardless of what your first job is going to be. We want our students to feel very comfortable being able to switch perspectives and integrate those things together.
And it's really neat to look at a given business challenge through the lens of these different disciplines. What are the accounting implications, the financial implications, the people implications, all kinds of strategy, marketing, and bringing that all together and looking at the pluses and minuses of a given decision. Kevin, what's your coolest course?
So I've had the benefit of a little time to think about this.
You have. It's always Megan.
So my first go was the course I teach. Although I taught many years as an accountant, I was 14 years as accounting faculty member. But now I teach a course on civil discourse, where we give students different prompts over controversial issues, trying to help them learn how to navigate conversations with people who might disagree in a civil and respectful way.
Is that badly needed right now?
That's what I would say. Yeah. But there's also another course that where on supply chain where they go to Italy and taste food and that kind of stuff. So that's probably cooler to the cooler to the students than it is to me.
Although, who can not like Italian food?
It's the traffic, you know. I'm getting older, so
Okay.
I recoil from traffic.
There you go. Megan, what are some of the cool course titles at Kelley?
Sure. I've been sitting on my hands to answer this because actually these two photographs that are in my office are from my favorite courses in the Kelley curriculum. We have a global core of 3 classes that students complete. And then we have this 272 experience. It's a sophomore course. The model is that students apply for the class, and if they're accepted, they take the class in the spring semester, and then they travel to the country that they've been studying with their faculty members and with 26 of their classmates. And so, having been to Istanbul, Turkey, and Budapest, Hungary, I would say that both those courses were taught by one of our faculty members who's in the finance department, Professor Richard Shockley. And Professor Shockley, actually, this is the only undergraduate course he teaches. And he developed it specifically to help students learn more about themselves and who they wanted to be in the world. And so the lens for the course, for the Hungary course, which is the one that's operating now, that lens focuses on the experience of Hungarian Jews during the end of World War II and what that experience was like within Hungary. And so a lot of times the students will get into the first lecture and they'll think, is this a business class? But then by the end, they say, this was the best possible class I have taken thus far. Because what he does is then draw a theme through the economic development of the country and what that meant. So I have had the good fortune of chaperoning those courses, and I am so grateful that the school has built the resources to make those things happen, because on those trips, we'll have students who have never been on an airplane before, and then students who are international, to whom this is just another trip for them, right? Because they come internationally to come to Bloomington to go to school. And it is so remarkable to see the learning that they experience. I just love that course.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. My stepdaughter had a course on the Holocaust, psychology course, which ended in a trip to Eastern Europe, which was really cool. So we just have a few more moments left. I want to just throw a few questions out there that a number of people have. We have a lot of questions. And so I'm going to just tell you, you can go to a chat room once we're finished and ask them directly. And really, you see how friendly all of our panelists are. You can just go in and ask anything you want. Dumb questions are okay. That's one of the things you'll learn as a journalist. There are no dumb questions. All questions are on the table, and it's perfectly copacetic to ask them. But here's, I think, a good question. It's like, what AP courses are recommended for those applying to business schools? Paul, you have an answer to that?
I do. You may not like it. I don't think. I don't think there's any particular AP course that's going to move the needle. I want to see students that are challenging themselves. Obviously, it should be a variety of things. I'd like to see quantitative and qualitative courses there. At Michigan, you have to take econ at Michigan. You don't get AP credit for that. So, don't knock yourself out in too much of that. And we also have a cap on the number of credits you can come in. So I would hate for students to, rack up 30 or so credits and then realize that you're not going to be able to utilize all those once you come to campus.
Great. Erica, as much as I love lectures, hands-on learning is what really creates knowledgeable experiences. What do you offer at Berkeley in terms of opportunities to do things on campus?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways to do it. We have both embedded in our curriculum. We have co-curricular activities. You've mentioned students that are initiating consulting projects. They have consulting arms of their student organizations where they're actually doing work for local businesses, where they're getting that direct experience in consulting. We have workshops that we also offer for free to students if they're interested in getting more of the hands-on application. So for example, if you're interested in financial modeling or valuation, we offer those kinds of workshops as well. So it really depends on your level of interest. But all of our courses have some sort of team work or team project involved, and a lot of the faculty will bring in live cases from companies and students are able to work on and contribute something to those businesses that are real time and that are real problems that they're trying to solve. And so you get a variety of different kinds of experiences where you're able to apply some of that learning.
Okay, one last question. This is from Cormac McCarthy. Do you have a higher chance of admission if applying early decision or regular? And what if you have not been able to take the SAT due to COVID? Should I wait for regular admission application deadlines when I have an SAT score, or should I apply now for an EA or ED admission? Kevin, do you have an answer for that?
That's a long question.
Do you have ED there? Early decision?
Oh, early discuss with that. Typically we do. In this environment, we actually going to have one decision date.
Okay.
And so in this case, I think it does, you know, for a host of reasons, it really does help us for students to apply early. But in this case, for this semester only, you wouldn't get notified at an earlier date.
Great. Megan, you have an answer for that one?
Yes, Indiana University is an early action school, and so we would recommend that students go ahead and get applied by November 1st, because that puts them in the running for the highest consideration for scholarship opportunities, and it also means that they'll get an admission decision by January 15th. So get everything in as much as you have by November 1st, but we are allowing students to submit test scores. Like if they happen to get a seating in November and they want to submit that, they absolutely can up until January 15th for further consideration, but get it in, right? Cross it off your list. Go ahead and apply test optional this year. If you then end up getting a seating in a test, great, we'll take it, but don't stress out about it.
Great. Okay. I'm already a couple of minutes behind, but I want to thank each and every one of you. You were terrific. I think we put out a lot of information into this audience, and a lot of things to consider, and really help to inform everyone about the value and the benefits of a good business education and the elements in it. Erica, thank you. Rick, thank you. Paul, thank you. Kevin and Megan, thanks so much for joining us. I want to remind everyone that they can now go into a chat room and have a conversation with representatives of each of these schools and ask any question you'd like, whether it's a generic question about admissions, career outcomes, school curriculum, elective offerings, majors, concentrations, extracurriculars, all kinds of things you got to think about when you go to a college, whether it's specific to the school that any of our representatives are in, or whether it's more, general, and you just want to know. I wish I could have gotten to all the other questions. I apologize for not being able to, but if I did, frankly, there'd be no other time for anything other than Q&A with our audience. But I want to also thank everyone for joining us. And I want to remind you that, our Poets and Quants for undergrads is a great resource. And just to give you a little sense of that, obviously U.S. News does the big ranking, and they get a lot of attention for it. But the truth is, you go to U.S. News, and all the stats in terms of admission standards, in terms of career outcomes, are all for the general university. The only place you're going to find stuff specific to a business school and its undergraduate business program is Poets and Quants for undergrads. We are data geeks, and we pour through data like you can't believe, because we love it. And you'll find tons of it on Poets and Quants for undergrads. So check it out. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot today. I certainly did. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you.